Hey, it's Amy. This month, we're releasing the final episode of our latest season, called Hark. The first episode came out around this same time last year, and what a year it has been. I'll admit that given the intensity of our politics right now, I had some fears that this set of stories focused on listening to the more than human world might seem, a little irrelevant maybe, or even worse, cute. But as the months have rolled by, I've actually felt more and more clear that this was exactly the right time to make and share this set of stories. Because we are living through such a noisy time. Our screens are blinking red and blaring out alarm calls, and we need to be paying attention to those emergency signals. But our planet mates need and deserve our attention too. Dolphins and elephants, tree hoppers and turtles, naked mole rats and humpback whales, they have stories to tell, wisdom to share. And listening to them matters. It matters for them and for us. Because our human dramas, as loud and all-consuming as they might be, will come and go. Our future depends on the long-term project of becoming better citizens of this community of life around us. And that starts with listening. That's what Hark is all about, and we could not have made it without you. Almost every dollar that funded this season came from an individual listener, just like you. If you're inspired to help us keep making Threshold, we could really use your support. Right now, all donations up to $1,000 will be doubled thanks to our partners at Newsmatch. So whatever you contribute between now and the end of the year, whether that's $5 a month or $50, will go twice as far. And we get an extra bonus for new donors. It's quick and easy to make a contribution. Just go to thresholdpodcast.org and click donate. Thank you.
Storytelling, we can't necessarily silo it into just a human speaking in whatever language that we can understand.
I'm in Missoula, Montana, walking next to the Clark Fork River, talking about listening with one of our most celebrated local authors.
I am Chris Latreille. Do you want me to say more than that?
Yeah.
I am a Métis storyteller. I am an enrolled member of the Little Shell Tribe of Chippewa Indians, and I am the Montana State Poet Laureate for 2023 through 2025.
And since it's audio, I need to tell people that as Poet Laureate, you wear a golden crown, which you have on right now.
Yes.
It looks really good on you.
Yeah, it grafts itself to my scalp for 2 years, and then it just falls off like elk antlers.
I wish it were actually elk
Wouldn't
antlers.
that be cool? Yeah.
Welcome to Threshold. I'm Amy Martin, and this is the last episode of this season of our show. There are so many ways to listen in this world, and for our final episode, I want to bring you some of the voices of people I met as I reported for this season, who come from cultures where listening to the more than human world is a deeply held value, something people do regularly, just as a matter of course. Instead of focusing on one animal or one type of communication, we're going to think more about what it means to listen to a whole place and everything in it.
You know, if we look at the clouds are telling a story based on what the weather conditions are like. You know, if we see all of a sudden a bunch of birds erupt from a tree or something like that, that is a story. There's something that is causing them to do that. So the world is in constant effort to tell stories. So, you know, we kind of overestimate our own genius when we assume we're the only ones who tell stories, you know?
Yeah, you just landed on the heart of what is pulling me to do this season about listening. There are stories everywhere.
All the time. We consider, rocks to be the first storytellers, and you can take a group of kids out to a place and say, well, what are the rocks telling you right now? If they're big boulders, well, they're telling the story of, glaciers and things like that. And The world is the first storyteller that's told us the story of how to be who we are.
And that's why it's breaking my heart that there's all these stories. They're beautiful, they're funny, they're sad, they're interesting. And so when we're not listening to anything other than our own voices, we're missing out on something.
That's it. We're missing out. Our lives and our connection to the world are passing for our brief little time. We get to be part of it, and we're missing it. And that's the tragedy.
One of the questions I posed in our first episode was how listening might change us. What happens to us when we tune in a little bit more intentionally to our own lives, but also to everything in the more than human world? And in some ways, Chris has lived an answer to that question. His first book, One Sentence Journal, began simply as a daily practice of noticing. He knew he wanted to be a writer, but he was working a job he hated, and he'd find himself at the end of the day having done nothing remotely creative. So he started writing just one sentence a day in his journal.
Just to feel like for the 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it was that I was doing it, that I was practicing my craft. And what I learned from that is that, at the end of the day, when I couldn't think of things on some days, and I'd realize if I can't think of one memorable thing in this only version of this day that I'm going to have, then that just means I'm not living my life because I'm not paying attention to it. And so it became, the writing became secondary to the importance of just trying to reconnect and paying attention to my life unfolding around me.
Chris published One Sentence Journal as a book in 2018. That was followed by a book of poetry in 2021, and in 2024, a memoir, Becoming Little Shell. His decision to watch and listen, to spend even just 5 minutes on the act of noticing, ended up changing the whole course of his life. I think this is what the world needs us all to do. In this time of multiple mounting ecological and social crises, yes, we need to act and to stop taking some really destructive actions. But I also think we need to spend less time focused on ourselves and more time taking in all the life around us, to just listen more. I don't think it's the whole answer, but I do think it's an essential piece. We needed to listen in the past, we need it now, and we'll keep needing it in the future.
Our creator, Kichi-Manitou, which means the great mystery, dreams the world into existence. And the world exists, and Kichi-Manitou thinks, I've done this wonderful thing, it's perfect. And over a long time, it is. And, all of the other relatives then kind of start to whisper to Kichi-Manitou that maybe things aren't quite as they seem. Maybe it's not quite perfect. We're missing one thing. And of course, that one thing is the human relative. So Kichi-Manitou takes a handful of soil from Mother Earth from each of the 4 directions and places it in this shell and then breathes through the shell, and that kind of mingling of this holy breath and this wondrous, best kind of soil you can imagine, the kind gardeners dream of. What emerges from the other side of the shell is the first person. And that first person's name is Nanabuju. And the first task that Kichi-Manitou gives Nanabuju is to go out onto Mother Earth and learn who everybody else already is. And of course, the only way that Nanabuju is capable of doing that is to go out and do everything that we've been talking about all morning, is just listen and pay attention and hear what the world is telling them. Nanabuju, the only way they can learn that is by listening, and over the course of that listening, learns the common language that everybody speaks. It's like when we're talking about trees making sounds when they need water, and other animals and birds and things being able to hear that. That's them still being able to speak this language. And we've lost that. Over time, we became so proud of our own intellect and our own abilities, and we lost the humility that is necessary to live in reciprocal relationship with the rest of the world, that we've lost it. So when we talk about now about going out and trying to reconnect, we're just trying to return to what we were from the very beginning.
I think it's so fascinating that in that story, what the first person was supposed to do was listen.
Yes.
A note to our Australian Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander listeners. This episode mentions deceased people.
One thing about shark waves, don't argue, just listen, because you might learn something. And if you don't listen straight away, it'll bite you pretty quick too. My name is Bianca McNear. I'm a Mulgana woman from Kathaguru. Yeah, so Mulgana mob, our country is Kathaguru, or other people know as Shark Bay. It means two waters or two bays, and yeah, we're very much saltwater people.
Bianca and I are sitting under a picnic shelter just a few feet from the sparkling waters of Kathaguru in Western Australia. I met her here when I was on my way up the coast, before I got to hang out with the Shark Bay dolphins for a few days. And she gave me a really fantastic orientation to this place that her people, the Mulgana, have called home for tens of thousands of years. She told me her grandmother was actually born on the beach, right next to where we're talking.
A lot of Mulgana language is really specific to saltwater and to saltwater animals and plants, and even our relationships with each other is all surrounded around the water. So different to a lot of other neighbouring language groups, because we're so far in the ocean here. Yeah, sticking out the most westerly point of WA. Yeah.
Bianca says her childhood was full of listening, especially to stories that conveyed moral codes and practical information about how to survive in this part of the world.
One of my favourite stories that I've carried on from my mum is about our turtle, the Buyongara who didn't listen. So the story of the Buyongara who didn't listen is about when the tides came in, and the Buyongara was told by the other animals, be careful, country's changed, and if you eat them berries now, they're in the ocean now. So if you keep eating them, you'll end up stuck in the ocean. But Buyongara didn't listen, So kept eating them and eating them. Then when he got in the ocean, he realised he was too fat to get out. He had his little legs, couldn't get past his little fat belly. So he was stuck in the ocean forever then. Yeah, and so that's where we say our Buyongara come from.
Stories like these have been passed on person to person, generation to generation, among the hundreds of Indigenous groups living in what we now call mainland Australia and the Torres Strait Islands. That's the big archipelago between Northern Australia and Papua New Guinea. And Bianca says these stories are part of what's known as the dreaming.
Our dreaming, I suppose, is a lot of people used to say dream time, but it isolates it too much. I prefer to use the dreaming because it's the past, present and future all at once.
From my reading about the dreaming before coming to Australia, I had the sense that there was no way I was going to be able to really grasp it from the outside. But I asked Bianca if there was any concept in English that gets close to conveying what the dreaming is.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I find it hard to put into words myself, but it is. It's basically everything all at once. It's the whole cycle of our culture, or even just life, universe. Yeah, everything. But I suppose we talk about our dreaming being those very, very old stories that are passed on, that are somehow still about today. Yeah.
They can be really funny and deadly serious at the same time, Bianca says. These stories map out the world and how to behave in it, along with information about places, animals, weather, family history. and it's all woven into daily life and relationships. Elders give you pieces of stories when you need them, she says, and when they think you're ready to hear them.
You know, every day you're told things, but you might not get told the whole story for 10 years. You know, it's broken down over 10 years, this one lesson that you're meant to learn. And sometimes it's a story that teaches you 10 different lessons out of the one story. So you have to really pay attention, you know, when people are telling you things up here.
Bianca says one of the people who shared a lot of Malgana dreaming with her was her grandmother, who she called Nana Ada. And some of Nana Ada's stories were kind of confusing, she says, because she would point out into the sea and explain how Malgana people used to live their lives out there, not in boats, on land. She talked about important sites, like where people would go to find fresh water.
She'd sit down the foreshore down there and she'd just point them out to you. And I'd be like, oh yeah, you know, and it's like, I'm in the present and I'm thinking Nan's showing me something that maybe she saw when she was a kid. But actually what she was telling me was something that happened 6,000 years ago.
People have been living in Australia for at least 60,000 years, which means they made it through major climatic changes, like the last glacial maximum around 20,000 years ago. That's when much of the northern hemisphere was last buried in ice, and sea levels around Australia were much lower. As the world slowly warmed up, the ice melted, the seas rose, and people moved inland. But they brought their stories with them.
All around Australia, our dreaming stories are attached to those climate events.
Our current climate disruptions, which threaten more sea level rise, have led some scientists to get interested in piecing together more of the details of what happened then and how people around the Australian coast survived. And Bianca has collaborated on some of those studies.
They were talking about the underwater cultural heritage of Australia. And that fascinated me because I was like, that's what Nana Ada was talking about. And that's what we talk about. She was actually talking about something that had been verbally passed on to her for 6,000 years. And I'm like, what? I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, wow. The stories that they used to tell blow my mind when I think about it, you know.
The fact that these stories and lessons are still being told here is something of a miracle, given what Malgana people went through over the last few centuries. Starting in the 1600s, wave after wave of Europeans sailed here looking for land and resources. The British became the dominant colonizing power, but the Dutch, French, and people from many other countries also played a role. In this part of Australia, the first things they wanted were whales. Then it was guano, bird poop, scraped and shoveled and hauled by hand onto boats, and then shipped back to Europe for fertilizer. Next came oysters, harvested in huge quantities for their pearls and their shells. Malgana people and people from other Aboriginal groups here were captured and forced to work in the pearling industry and treated horrifically. And it just goes on from there. So many chapters of Australian history echo the traumas imposed on Indigenous and African American people in the United States. Forced removals from ancestral lands, deadly new contagions, indentured servitude and enslavement, children sent to boarding schools designed to break their cultural and familial ties. Malgana language and culture were almost obliterated.
You know, from those days we lost our voices a long time ago. You know, we were told we couldn't even speak our language, or you'd be locked up in jail, and then that would mean your children would be taken from you just for speaking your language.
One way to think about colonization is as a massive failure to listen, a decision not to listen, to impose a story rather than try to hear one. Forcing people off of their traditional lands and making it a crime to speak their language was a way of separating people from their sources of strength, their intimate connections to their places and each other. It was an attempt to silence the dreaming.
Yeah, that's it. Yep, we've been muted for many, many years, and yet being a spoken culture is how we've survived.
Bianca says her community is still living with the legacy of all that destruction.
They were the ones that were torn apart. You know, they weren't able to stay together. They weren't able to stay on country. So I look around and I see that country needs them as much as they need country too.
When Bianca says country, you can feel that the word means a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Country to me, it covers land, sea, air, water. You know, it covers all of those things. For us, country is where I'm traditionally from. I'll go to somebody else's country and they'll have different protocols, different rules and different special places, you know. Aboriginal people, I think in Australia, we look at country as where we come from. And that when we say where we come from, that's almost our DNA comes from that ground, in that water. And we're very much located to those places in our looks, in our accents, in our languages, in our practices. So, yeah, country means everything, I think, to me. Anyway, yeah, yep.
Dreaming happens on country, Bianca told me. It comes from country. Country speaks to people through the dreaming. And it's people's job to listen.
I love it when you're out on country and an elder starts talking, everyone just goes silent. And all the young fellas are like just glued, you know. I love it. I see it all over Australia. All our moms are the same like that, you know. You'll hear someone start a yarn and everything will go quiet. Because that yarn will include whitefella culture. It'll include industry culture. It'll include family information. It'll include country information. But it'll be something really personal to you as well. All of those things all at once. Yeah. I'm very proud of my culture. You know, there's ways of caring for country that will make it sustainable going forward. If we can only go back to look at the way First Nations mob use the resources of their country, we can look forward to a more sustainable future.
In 1998, Malgana people petitioned the federal court to have their ancestral ties to this land and water legally recognized. Bianca's mother was involved in that fight, which went on for 20 years. But finally, in 2018, the court recognized the Malgana as the native title holders here.
You know, our ancestors, they saw colonisation coming, and yet we're still sitting here today. So if they can get us through to this day, we've got to do that again now for our next generations. And I think that's a strength that our people have had. The longest continuous culture in the world, our people are. So I think that gives us a strength to say, yep, okay, we've got a job to do. Let's just do it together. Yeah.
Humans have got where we are by having a deep connection to place and understanding it and knowing it. Kaya, my name is Dr. Cass Lynch, and I'm a Korang Wajari Noongar York, that is a woman of the Noongar Nation, here in the southwest of Western Australia.
I'm in the city of Perth now, the capital of Western Australia, talking with Cass in her office at Curtin University.
I'm a postdoctoral research fellow. I did my PhD in Aboriginal stories that reference climate change. My postdoc is working with my own community, the Werliman Noongar community from the south coast of WA, and we're working on Noongar language revitalisation.
We're pretty far away from Shark Bay, but Cass says in this part of Australia too, people still remember ancient climate-related stories. And they also talk about country.
There is a word in Noongar and it's Boodja, B-O-O-D-J-A. Boodja means the land that you are responsible for, so it's within your geopolitical borders, right? But that land is layered with your ancestors' birth and burial sites and with songlines. Those are stories that are are place-based. So a songline is a story that changes as you move through a landscape because different features in the landscape represent birth site, burial site, perhaps a creation site, perhaps a women's site, men's site, important water or ceremony sites. So country is the word we've all adopted to express this place that is not just land, but a register of our social, story and climate histories.
For Cass, hearing those stories and understanding them to be part of her story was life-changing. It was a process that took some time. Her Noongar roots are on her mother's side, and they'd been covered up and then rediscovered, leaving Cass with a lot of questions about who she was and how to be Noongar.
Like it started intellectual, like, oh, what does it mean to be a Noongar person if I wasn't born on country and I'm fair-skinned, you know? And became more like, oh, it's not about how the world perceives me, it's what my responsibilities are and how those responsibilities came to be forged in our culture. And it comes from really noticing country.
She's learned that you can't truly care for country from afar because you can't really know it from afar. You have to be on it and in it, she says, close enough to hear it.
Noongar culture is about embodying place, but you can't embody the whole world.
Cass says caring for country means becoming intimate with a particular area that's small enough to know deeply and well.
So you become an expert on that place.
One of the creatures Cass has bonded with in her country is a particular little spider that only lives in a very small part of the Purungarup Range, a mountainous area that's sacred to Noongar people. These spiders have survived here for millions of years.
To go there and to sit there, these charming little spiders, you never see them, but they all decorate their burrows differently, right? So they are a community, say, of, 40 in a little patch. The big burrows are the size of a 10-cent piece. That's the grandmother. And then her babies, when they get out, they only go like 20 or 30 centimetres. So these short-range endemics only live in like 1 square kilometre of this entire world, right? When I spend time with them and look at them and write poetry about them, that is country showing me how to slow down. It's showing me, look at this short-range endemic who stayed close to grandma, close to mother. They're all there, they don't go any further than that. They're generations and generations and generations in one place. Are just one of these things on country that remind me of what it means to be in relationship with place and how that has influenced Noongar culture and our values. Country gives you signals and signs, and a really prominent one is the cry of the Carnaby's black cockatoo, Nulyak. There's something extraordinary about black cockatoos flying overhead. They have a really whistling call. So the Carnaby's black cockatoo, white-tailed black cockatoo, is a animal under threat. You know, Coolbarity, the magpie, and Warradong, the crow, they can live at the fringes of human society. They create their own nest in any tree. The black cockatoo, not so much. Deforestation has devastated them. You know, my mother-in-law talks about seeing clouds of black cockatoos in the 70s. I don't know what that's like. You know, I didn't experience it. And so when I see 10 fly overhead and the sound of their beautiful call, they're beautiful big birds, but gentle and curious. When I hear their call, it is a history of what has been done to them. And I want people in the future to have that. You know, that's our blood in their feathers, you know, that's our spirit on the wind. They are us talking to each other. I don't know what it would be like for people to not hear black cockatoos. I don't know what would be lost. Some whistle that you just would never rattle around your brain again, that humans have always had in this part of the world. They are flying around reminding us of who we are. you need to have these places and these animals to reconnect back to and focus on. Otherwise, all we've got is the holograms and ghosts of Western culture that come into our faces, into our ears, and you're just in a soup of shallow time that just rolls over and over and over. It's an anxious present, right? Because you don't have any roots. You don't have any temporal roots, time roots, we'll call them. And so it is this perfection that flies around our country, inspiring us to be the best that we can.
We'll have more after this short break.
Hi, I'm Matthew from Savannah, Georgia. I'm so thankful for Threshold because they thoughtfully balance the heavy facts concerning our environment with positive stories that inspire us all to keep going and to stay focused on building a better world for everyone, the small creatures included. It's one of those shows I always make time for, to focus intently on. I find myself often coming back later to re-listen to certain episodes, because they just stick with me long after I hear them. That's the mark of powerful storytelling. But these stories take time to produce. That's where we come in. As listeners and supporters, it's up to us to ensure the people who make Threshold possible have the resources they need to be successful. So please, go to thresholdpodcast.org and click donate. And during this fundraising campaign, your contribution will be doubled. Thank you.
Listening is used a lot in my tribe.
This is Tilas Lekongo.
I grew up here in Samburu, born here, went to school here. So yes, I was born behind that mountain just in front of me here.
We've hopped continents now. I'm talking with Tilas in northern Kenya on Samburu land, not far from the Reteti Elephant Sanctuary, the home for rescued baby elephants where we spent episode 11. And actually, a few wild bull elephants are browsing through the bushes and trees very close to us while we talk. They can be so quiet when they want to be. But Tilas says growing up here, you learn how to listen for them.
Walking at night, you must know if an elephant is around, what kind of sound will you hear? If a lion is around, what will you hear? And the only way you knew that is by experience.
We've talked a lot in this season about how listening is connected to survival, preventing extinction of other species, saving ourselves from a ruinous future. Tilas says in Samburu culture, the connection between listening and survival is direct and concrete. It starts with being sent out into the bush as a very young child to tend to herds of goats, cattle, and camels.
As we grow up, then you learn to take care of the small goats, then graduate to take care of the goats, graduate to take care of maybe the young calves, then go to the cows.
Samburu kids are out on the land, alone or with siblings, learning the skills they need to protect themselves and their herds from the many wild animals around. And Tilas says often the best form of protection is simply listening and getting out of the way when necessary.
So as you grow up, you know, when you hear a cutting saw, that must be a leopard. When you hear a noise like, ooh, that must be a hyena. And whenever you hear maybe any crackling in the bush, you know probably the lions are fighting for a carcass. And then, you need to avoid them. And even human sounds. Whenever you hear anybody shouting, we are told this kind of a shout is to say run away. This one is calling you to come. This one is there's a danger ahead of you. So you hear any noise ooh, and you can go straight to that person to go and help.
Can you say that noise again?
Ooh,
Ooh, it means I'm in trouble.
I'm in trouble. Help me.
Learning to identify all of these different kinds of sounds is non-negotiable here.
Everyone must learn all this to survive. Because you don't know, maybe a buffalo is making the noise behind the bush and you don't know that's a buffalo, you walk towards it, what next? You lose your life. By the time you're 10 years old, you know exactly which animal makes which noise and why and at what time and when should they make that noise and all that. They learn all this.
When Tilas was around 6, he was sent to a boarding school. It was about 30 kilometers or 18 miles away, and he walked there. Every few months, there would be a break, and he would walk home, usually in a group of kids. And on one of those journeys home from school, his survival skills were put to the test, especially his listening abilities.
So one of the holidays, we left, I think we were more than 10 boys together. I was the youngest of all.
He thinks he was probably around 9. So he heads off on this long walk from school through the wilderness with his pals.
So we walked all the way until my village was less than 5 kilometers.
And at that point, they came to a river. Everyone was pretty close to home, but for those last few kilometers, they all had to head off in different directions. And they weren't ready to split up. Like kids anywhere, they wanted to play.
We started playing, throwing rocks and wrestling. It became very late, like probably 6.
The sun sets reliably around 6:30 p.m. this close to the equator. And there isn't much twilight. It's bright, and then it's dark. And the boys realized
everybody has to go home. And I found myself running to our village. When I arrived where the village was, it was too unfortunate that I only found no even footprint of animals. People left more than 2 weeks ago. And then I was like, what?
Tilas's parents and his whole village had left the area. That might sound kind of uncaring, but you have to understand the context. Samburu parents can't keep their kids alive if they don't keep their herds alive. So when the goats and cattle need to move to find food, you just move with them. It's not really a choice. But Tilas's parents didn't really have a way to contact the school, so they just moved on and trusted him to find them. So here's Tilas, around 9 years old. He's alone, it's dark, and in that darkness, he knows there are elephants, leopards, hyenas, lions. He needs to find his people, or any people, really. And he knows the best way to find them is to listen. Not for human voices necessarily, but for the voices of their companions.
The goats, the donkeys, the cows.
He knows from experience that these are the sounds he's most likely to be able to hear from a distance.
And it was already late, and I had to look around, run for like 5 other kilometers towards south, climb up on the rock, climb up on a tree, listening, no sounds of animals, run towards east, west, then listening, I can hear nothing.
A couple of hours go by. He hasn't eaten since he left school that morning.
I was still walking and hoping to find our village, or just to hear some noise of animals so I can run to that village and spend my night. Unfortunately, I haven't had any.
But he did hear something else, a rustling in the bushes. An animal was following him.
And then I was like, oh, there's something making noise behind me. So it's like, okay. I keep on walking. I was a young boy. I decided to take a rock and hit.
He wanted to know what was tracking him, and he figured if he hit it, it might call. And it did. He threw the rock and heard, "Ooh!"
Then like, wow, so this was hyena. So now I knew it's hyena. And I was a young boy, and I knew that, I should be brave enough to scare away the hyena.
At least it wasn't a leopard or a lion. Little Tilas took comfort in the fact that he was being hunted by one of the smaller carnivores around.
So I kept walking for another 1 more kilometer, and the hyenas became 2. Then I can hear them like making ee, and they kept on making more noise. All of a sudden they are 3. Then when they became 3, I can hear more hyenas are coming and shouting like ee, like making some unusual noises, running towards me. And I went like, so shall I be a meal tonight for the hyenas? So I decided, okay, no. I took some rocks, hit them, then I just climbed up a tree. I went up a distance where I know the hyenas cannot get me. And then I stayed there for the whole night.
It was an especially dark night with no moon.
Being up on a tree You had no water the whole day. You had no meal. The only meal you had was yesterday in school. Those 12 hours were a long, long time. By almost 3 o'clock, I heard the donkey making a noise at a long distance. Then that told me like, yes, that's the village. So the next morning, if I survive, I'll just walk straight towards the sound of the donkey. I wanted to calm down, but my instincts are telling me, no, wait more, wait for the sun. So the sky kept on changing.
And then finally, the first beams of sunlight swept across the valley.
So I just saw the sun rising. I survived. So the next morning I just came down. I went straight where I heard the sound of the donkey. Unfortunately, it was not our village again. But fortunately, they knew where my villager was. So I went in, I was welcomed, I was given milk, I was given water. And then I was showed where my village was. Like, your village is, you see that hill there? Behind the hill is 2 rivers that you'll cross. When you cross the second river, that's where your village will be.
So off he went again into the bush, alone.
So I had to run. Before I arrived home, I met some guys taking care of the animals, and I told them I spent it in the night. And then they were like, wow, you spent it in the night? You should not go home.
They told him that spending the night alone in the bush, as he had done, was dangerous, not just physically, but spiritually. He needed to be cleansed before he returned to the village, or he might end up spending the rest of his life alone in the bush.
So they had to walk to go and look for a gray goat. They brought it to me, then they slaughtered it, they took their stomach, they add some water, they have to wash me. Then washing you with the gray goat, it's like saying that you died and you resurrected again, and like they do that ritual so that you will not again have something like that appearing to you or happening to you. So after that, I found our home, and yeah, here I am to tell the story. I survived.
We're heading back to Australia one last time after this short break.
Hi, I'm Sam. I'm a producer here at Threshold, and this is the sound of the ocean coming up onto the rocks in my neighborhood in Maine. What's one of the signature sounds of your place? Maybe it's a bird, or maybe it's your cat, or maybe it's your cat meowing at the bird. Maybe it's a bustling city sidewalk, or a quiet country road, or your sibling blaring their music from the other room. Whatever it is, we want to hear it. Send us a recording of something from your world, and we'll add it to our Threshold listener soundscape, which we'll share with you early next year. All you have to do is make a donation of any amount. Even $1 works, and we'll send you an email with the instructions. Thanks.
I'm about a day's drive up the Western Australian coast from Shark Bay, heading into an enormous art museum. But there are no walls here, no canvases protected behind glass in quiet rooms. This art is carved into the stones that cover this landscape.
My name is Clinton Walker. I am a Ngarloman Injimandi man. We're currently in Murajuga. Is the traditional name of this area that's typically called the Barb Peninsula and Dampier Archipelago.
I'm sitting next to Clinton in his truck, driving through a series of hills made of red rocks, and a huge number of those rocks are covered in ancient art.
Murajuga is home to the highest concentration of rock art in the form of petroglyphs or carved images in the stones. And it was made by my people over thousands and thousands of years.
The sheer amount of rock art here is really hard to fathom. There are likely more than 1 million individual pieces, maybe even twice that. Like Clinton said, it's one of the biggest collections of rock art in the world, a record of human culture here that stretches back for tens of thousands of years. But in the last 60 years or so, a very different kind of use has emerged. And it's looming just across the water as we get out of Clinton's truck.
We are talking about a really important cultural site. And right behind us,
Yes.
my God, it's like the biggest, I think it's the biggest plant I've ever seen. That's the Karratha gas plant, yeah?
Karratha gas plant is the biggest oil and gas plant in Australia. One of the biggest, definitely in the southern hemisphere. It's just incredibly large.
Calling it a plant doesn't paint the right picture. This is not a factory. It's an industrial city. It has its own roads. It's a labyrinth of steel beams, spiky towers, and blinking lights perched right on the shore, directly across from this cultural heritage site.
I knew that both these things existed here, the rock art and the industry, but until I got here, I could not grasp how close they are together. It is like mind-boggling.
Yeah. It's painful to see all the time, but we've got to numb our senses a bit because there's nothing we can do about it. It's there now, you know?
The Karratha gas plant is actually just one part of a big industrial complex here. Offshore, huge deposits of gas are drilled out of the seafloor and transported here to multiple refineries. On land, iron ore is mined and brought here to be loaded onto ships and sent around the world. There are ammonia plants, fertilizer plants. The whole area is abuzz with people driving around in company trucks and trains moving to and fro. Companies from all over the world are making big money here. Yara, Chevron, Rio Tinto, and Australia's own Woodside Energy. All this industrial activity brings jobs, of course, and in fact, Clinton used to work at the Karratha gas plant himself. But he left to start a business focused on cultural preservation, taking visitors on tours to see the rock art. And he also provides trainings for the workers at the plant.
So one of the things that I do encourage my people is we can't change what's already been built, but what we can do is change the people's perceptions who work there so that they understand more about the local area, the local people, and why all this rock art is important and why it needs to be protected, you know?
We turn away from the plant and focus our attention back on the rocks.
I'll show you just in a second here a piece of turtle rock art and a stingray liver. You'll see in a second.
All right, so we're walking up into the rocks. Oh, wow.
Turtle.
There's a turtle. It's right there. And then what's that?
That's the stingray liver.
Okay.
Clinton says turtles are a very important part of traditional culture here. Historically, people depended on them for food, and the process of learning to hunt them was intertwined with learning practices that protected the animals for the long haul.
Because it's something that we eat, we have to protect it more than anybody because we need it to be sustainable for future generations. And all this rock art is teaching you about their life cycle, their nesting habitats, how long they live, when to hunt them, all this type of stuff is recorded in the rock.
As we walk through the area, it's almost impossible not to step on the art. It's everywhere.
And this area here, behind us, and that rocky outcrop just over the top there, is just covered in turtle rock art, the whole lot. It's everywhere you look around this area. Before they built this plant here, there were these amazing beaches. So it was a turtle nesting site. A lot of turtles would come here, but this was an education place to learn about turtles.
There are turtle shapes of all sizes etched into the stone. Some of them are only faintly visible in the right sort of light. Others are still bold and clear. I notice one that's covered in precise round dots, which Clinton says represent eggs. Others include hatch marks and curving lines.
And this is really important too. These are markings that represent the turtles when they go to lay their eggs on the beach. So that's the track that they make.
Oh.
So that's what they represent,
Wow.
turtle tracks.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
And it's not just turtles. All kinds of information is recorded here. Like that stingray liver. It looks like a little horseshoe. And there's a reason someone took the time to make an image of it in stone.
The liver is rich in iron and other things. So that's also a really good food source, very healthy for you, you know? Yeah.
So you can imagine, like, people were out here teaching kids about this.
Yeah.
Showing them, like, this is what to look for. And
Same like how I grew up, you know? But my people been doing it for generation upon generation.
yeah,
Yeah. Going back, I don't know, 60,000 years or something.
amazing.
Clinton says the art we're looking at right in this spot is probably a few thousand years old. In other areas, pieces have been dated to 10,000 years old or more. And as I'm taking all of this in, my sense of whiplash only increases. I look in one direction and I see a massive industrial complex. In the other, I see a vast cultural and artistic wonder. It's so disorienting. I mean, imagine standing in the Louvre looking at famous paintings with gas flaring out of giant towers in your peripheral vision. That's what this is like. And of course, the land where the plants are now also used to have rock art on it. Thousands of pieces were destroyed or moved to make way for industry. But as companies aim to expand operations here, traditional owners are pushing back against any plans to relocate more of the art.
In our culture, we don't remove rock art. So let's say we cut all this off the rocks and we place it in a museum. What happens then? You lose the story, the significance that it has to the area. And like, we know by having this here, this was a place where turtles come, you know? You take that away, you don't have that same connection to the place, you know?
Yeah. The place is part of the art.
That's right. It was chosen specifically because of what is in this area, yeah.
This art isn't just about this place. It's literally made of this place. It reflects the stories and information that were learned and passed down here. Clinton says his elders gave him this same kind of place-based education all the time while he was growing up.
Yeah, they would tell you to come around and then they'll say, "Wanyarima, wanyabarima," which means listen now, and then they'll start telling us stories. And then we would spend whatever period listening and learning, and then once that was done, we could go back to playing and doing other things. As long as we got the stories in our head, and that would happen every day, every school holiday, every weekend, whatever.
Some of the stories could take hours to tell, he says. Some might just be a few minutes.
You know, you might just hear a little story about an area while you pulled up somewhere, you know. It's like, while we're here, kids, we'll tell you about this place, you know. And they would teach us, and then we'd go somewhere else, and we might go to a water hole and have a swim and things. And then after we're done swimming and we're having some lunch, we sit down and tell us another story about the area, you know.
Are those good memories for you, or were you kind of... Yeah.
My memories of being with my elders, because a lot of them are past now, you know. So I really cherish those memories growing up, spending time with them, going out on country, learning different things from them. And what I know now is because of them. So I really appreciate what I learned and how I was brought up. So yeah, they're really special for me. Yeah.
Clinton has kids and grandkids of his own now, and he takes them and other young people out on the land to keep these traditions alive.
Is it hard to get them to listen with all the distractions today?
Not when you're out on country. So that's why it's really important to be on country. And when you take the kids out, the distractions are gone. They're focused on where they're at. And we tell them, you know, we don't want to stop you doing things, do what you like, all that. But remember, when you're out here and you're spending this time, these are memories that one day you'll be thinking back, I'm really grateful I learned that, you know, because one day we won't be here.
There are serious concerns about the long-term survival of the rock art as well. Recent studies have shown that pollution from all of the plants in the area is wearing down the surfaces of some of the stones, with damage being greater the closer the rocks are to the plants. In an effort to secure more protection, local people have been working for years to get the Murujuga cultural landscape listed as a World Heritage Site through the UN. And that finally happened in July 2025. But just a few months before, Woodside Energy received permission from the government to extend its operations in the area until 2070, sparking protests from archaeologists, climate activists, and traditional owners. Clinton is taking the long view.
I know that one day, and might be in my lifetime, we'll see this all finished.
He says when your culture is tens of thousands of years old, a few decades is a drop in the bucket. And in the meantime, he'll do what his people have always done. Listen to country.
Country is always talking to me, telling me things, showing me things. And I always listen to country, because when I listen to the country, it tells me what I need to do. But you can only get that is when you spend time on the country. Because when you're sitting out somewhere else, maybe, in an office or in town, or you won't learn none of that stuff. But when you're here, you see, that bird over there, and then you listen to what that bird is doing, or something else. That stone will tell you something because it might. Even if it doesn't have rock art, you look at that stone, that'll be great for making artifacts from, like stone tools. Other one would reveal how to find water, all this sort of stuff. The country tells you just got to learn to listen. Yeah.
The first step, he says, is just quieting down, calming down. That's where he often starts with people when he's leading tours on country.
And that's what I tell them, get away from all the distractions and come sit down. And when we sit down, just sit there for a minute and just don't do anything and just take everything in. And then you start, the wind talks to you, the trees talk to you, the rocks talk to you, the water talks to you, everything talks to you because they want you to know things, they want you to learn to look after it. The moment you stop listening, that's when country gets hurt, and then people get hurt. Yeah.
Up behind us.
Okay, let's go.
So we're going to end this season where we began, in a boat on Shark Bay with a team of dolphin researchers. And dolphins.
We can see them just below the surface.
Stephanie King is leading this research team from the University of Bristol in the UK, along with Laura Palmer and Millie Clark.
Oh, I think it's a consort ship.
No way.
Yeah.
Ooh,
you see what
it's
Wow
something
was just
across
doing
them.
then? It was, and then they were
One of
like,
the running jokes of my time with this crew was that they didn't want to emote too much, especially with me around recording them. But they really couldn't help it, and I'm so grateful for that.
oh my God, there's more of them, and they're foraging. It's the boys.
Look at the joy on her face.
Too much feeling there. Too much feeling.
Dampen your emotions, Stephanie.
As much as I wanted to learn some of the fascinating science behind dolphin communication, how we're learning to decode their buzzes and whistles and more, I also just wanted to get inside the experience of being a professional dolphin listener. How does spending so much time tuning into the communication of another animal change a person? How does all this listening to the more than human world make you feel? I think it's clear that one answer is that it brings a lot of joy.
What's he doing? Look at that.
One of the males was lying on his back, wiggling around in a goofy sort of way. On a different day, we saw a female zipping around with a sea sponge on her nose. Apparently, it protects the dolphin's beak as it pokes around in the rocks searching for fish. But only a very small percentage of Shark Bay dolphins do this. Why? And why was that male shimmying around on his back? There's just so much we don't know about these animals, even though they're actually much more like us than many others. And those mysteries are a big part of the delight.
Oh, I love being on the water. No matter how tired I am, it's the best.
Yeah, this is cool.
It's just you never know what you're going to find, and animals that you haven't seen that year. I love it.
Yeah.
Stephanie plans to continue her research here for many years. And with all the technological changes happening in bioacoustics, I asked her what she was hoping her dolphin listening might lead to.
I hope that we can really uncover how they communicate amongst themselves, to really understand their communication system. They've been studied for decades, over 50 years, but we're still scratching the surface with what many of the sounds mean. We need to appreciate that they have a complex communication system that we barely understand. And that's what we should be focusing on. And I think to do that, you need to understand the context in which they produce sounds. You need to understand how other dolphins respond when they hear those sounds. You can't get that from AI at the moment. You need to study them in the wild. You need the behavioral observations.
One of your hopes is not to someday be able to speak dolphin.
No, and I think we're doing the animals a disservice by focusing on that question. I think this comes down to maybe to our ego and wanting to talk to the animals.
It seems like we leap so quickly from the role of being a deep listener to wanting to be a talker.
Well, exactly. Humans love to talk, but what's far more important is we listen.
I turn my microphone out toward the water where the dolphins are swimming calmly nearby, and Stephanie and I just listen to them breathe for a few minutes.
I love that sound.
It's a simple sound and a relatable one, and yet it holds such a story. The ancestors of dolphins once walked on land. They developed lungs that breathe air, and when they moved into the sea, they kept them. Their voices, just like ours, begin with this. Opening our bodies to the atmosphere, allowing the particular blend of life-giving earth air that we all depend on to enter in and fill us up. And that air was gifted to us by even older ancestors, microbes and plants and rocks, and more than 4 billion years of planetary change. This is what I love about listening. It's like a magic portal. I focus on the sounds around me, and almost instantly, I'm in closer connection to my place and other beings. And I can hear how my own little life is a tiny part of this ensemble that's so much older and bigger than I am. And now, somehow, we're all here, breathing together, singing together, listening together. This episode of Threshold was written, reported, and produced by me, Amy Martin, with help from Erica Janik and Sam Moore. The composer of our gorgeous music this season was Todd Sikafus. Alan Douches graciously gifted us with his post-production time and skills, and our fact-checking throughout the season was by Sam Moore. The black cockatoo sounds you heard in this episode came from the website Xenocanto, and were recorded by Mark Harper, Matthias Versanger, Mark Anderson, and Drew Davison. And I can't resist telling you that the hyena sounds were actual hyenas I heard in the middle of the night and recorded in Samburu. Huge thanks to the entire Threshold team and board who contributed to this season in a million ways. Listening to drafts, helping to raise money, making social media posts, and so much more. Thank you to Jay Avery, Haley Bernard, Luca Borghese, Hannah Carey, Dan Carreno, Eleanor Cleverly, Kara Cromwell, Brittany D'Amico, Katie DeFusco, Ray Eknes, Eddie Gonzalez, Caroline Kurtz, Penelope Jackson, Deneen Weisky, and again, Erica Janik and Sam Moore. Threshold is made by Oracle Productions, a nonprofit organization powered by listener donations. And what that means is that we could not have told these stories without you, our community of listeners and donors. Threshold exists because you listen and donate and recommend the show to other people. And I am so grateful for that. You have underwritten 5 seasons, and we have plans for so much more. If you believe that these stories have value and you want to hear more of them, please consider supporting our work at thresholdpodcast.org. Thank you so much for listening.